Hello, Brianna. It's Mary Catherine. We're waiting for a few more folks to come, and I will give everybody instructions when we start. But if you have questions, you can put them in the question box. You can see it on your panel. If you can hear me, can you actually write, "Yes, I can hear you," in a question box? I want to make sure everything's going okay. Hooray! Thank you. I'm going to mute myself for a moment while I'm waiting for a few more people. Hello, everybody. I'm expecting a few more folks. If you have any questions, you can put the question in the questions section. You can see it right there. I'm going to be sort of keeping an eye on it as we go on. I'm expecting about 7 people, so they're waiting for at least 2 more. But if I don't see them, I will just get started really soon. All right. Just give it a little bit longer. I'm going to go on mute while I wait for those 2 more people. I'll give them 1 more minute. All right, everybody. I'm going to get started anyway. Just if somebody else comes in, I'll just get caught up. So thank you so much for attending this little webinar training. It's an hour. And if you can't hear me, you can write in the question box, "I can't hear you." We're going to start with a quick overview of the BikeSmart trailer, what's in it, what you can expect, our protocols for how to repack it and all that. If you have any questions, again, just put them right in the question bar. I'm keeping an eye on that. And so right now I have on the screen the BikeSmart manual. You will have received a copy of it with your confirmation form. But I'll be sending a copy of all of the training materials and what we covered today in a follow-up email to all of you. All right, so the trailer is about 20 feet long and 8 feet high. It has, it's got 2 stories in it, about 4 feet tall each. And in it, it's got small, medium, and large bikes, cones, training supplies, and helmets. Now, we really only have loaner helmets in the trailer now. We sent out an email to folks asking them if they wanted to give away helmets, but that is, those would come separately and not in the trailer. If you are interested in helmets, and you didn't get the email for some reason, let me know and I will set you up with Jonathan, who does the helmet piece. So the most important part of opening the trailer doors is Remembering, actually, when you close them, not to close them too quickly. They have a garage door opener spring, and if you slam it shut, it actually breaks the spring, and then the door will not open again, and we actually have to hire a company. So when you shut that door, make sure you shut it slowly and you hang on to the handle as much as you can. The combination for every single lock that we have for BikeSmart is 2014. Sometimes I'll get phone calls from teachers saying the locks don't work, and it is very rarely because the lock doesn't work, and very frequently because some of the locks that we have an index line. That's a line where you line up all the numbers at the base plate instead of in the center. So like at the top or the bottom of the dial. So just look for the index line. It may not be in a spot where you expect. So look for the line where to line up the numbers, and you'll most likely not have trouble. If you still have trouble, obviously call us. We want to help solve your problem. But that's just a quick troubleshooting. If the ground is uneven, please put a block underneath the door to even out. We include blocks in it so that they don't torque. It makes it really hard to shut when they're torqued. The blue boxes at the top are all like call out special notes. So to pay special attention to those as our pro tips and good ideas. For example, we include painter's tape. You can use that to mark the bikes and the helmet so you're not, and write the kids' names on it so you're not constantly reinventing the bike fit wheel every time you bring out the program for kids. For example, you might just be able to keep the seat in one spot and have the same child using the bike again. I don't know how often that happens, but it's possible, and same thing with helmets. And we keep these bikes as repaired as possible, and we check on them, but we do rely on you as well to let us know if a bike has come to you, it's not working, or it got broken during your program. If it got broken during your program, please don't worry about it. It happens to the best of us. Kids are hard on things. We expect it. As long as you are using the bikes in a reasonable, responsible manner, we expect to see a certain amount of wear and damage on the bikes. Just let us know. It's the only two complaints we get from schools really about the program are that the bikes were not put away properly. They weren't clean and weren't put away in a way that made it easy for the next school, and that there were a lot of broken bikes in the trailer. We do our best to pull out the bikes, but we can't pull out a bike that we don't know is broken. So make sure you put the bikes in a spot that's easy to find, to let the driver know that it is a thing to look for, and we'll be all set. So the bike sizes are, it actually ranges from what we call a 12-inch, 16-inch wheel, 20-inch wheel, 24-inch wheel, and 26-inch wheels are the ones we have in the trailer. And the 20-inch wheel bikes are basically sized for a large 5-year-old to a small 8-year-old. The 24-inch bikes are for a large 7-year-old to a small 11-year-old. And then we have large bikes for like a large 10-year-old to an adult. And the large bikes have different frame sizes. So if you have a kid who's too big for the medium bike, but for some reason is too small for the large bike, it might be the frame size on the large bike. So look for a smaller frame size. We also have balance bikes in the trailers, or kick bikes, or strider bikes. You might know them by a different name. They have no pedals, no chains. They just have 2 wheels, a frame, and sometimes brakes. Those bikes are supposed to look like that. They're for teaching kids how to ride a bike. It's easier to practice balancing first and then adding balancing and pedaling, rather than to have kids do both of those things at once. So it's a great little addition to the trailer for those students who can't ride bikes yet. All right, so we're storing the bikes during the loan period. It is kind of a lot of work pulling the bikes in and out of the trailer. We know that. We don't expect the bikes to be stored perfectly in the trailer during the loan, and we also have a lot of flexibility for schools on how to store the bikes between loans. Some schools keep them in a locked room all tied up. Some schools have a shed. Some schools do put them in and out of the trailer. It's whatever works for you, as long as you are confident they will not be stolen. We are fine with it. We do have long cables, so if you're talking, if you have a bunch of classes out, you don't need to put the bikes in and out of the trailer in between classes. Even if you're going to be away for a while, you can just lock the frames up with the 20-foot cable. Totally fine. Just as long as you're confident they won't get stolen, we're okay. We have had a few bikes stolen, but mainly they were from a trailer that wasn't adequately locked at night. All right, so repacking the bikes is pretty specific, but fairly simple. And before I continue, I should tell you that we pretty much advocate the use of child labor throughout this whole thing. So if you have a couple of students who you tap to help you before and after class, or a special group of assistants, or all the students in your class, but kids love to help. They're good helpers. They have a lot of energy, and there are a lot of them. So things like dealing with the bikes before and after class, or dealing with the helmets, or even at the end of the program or the beginning of the program, you have a group of specially picked kids who will help you load and unload the bikes. A lot of schools do that to solve some of the logistics with the sheer number of bikes we have. And the trailer has around 40 kids' bikes of all sizes in it, including sometimes a tandem bike or an adaptive bike if you requested one. So basically, you put the big bikes on the bottom and you face them in opposite directions when you put them in. So if you have the first bike facing the front of the trailer, the second bike will face the back of the trailer. It makes for a much more efficient fit. And you just keep putting them in, going alternating front to back until you have about 7 to 8 bikes. And then you move to the next section. So if you look at number 5, you'll see that there are 3 little bays and then an alley in the trailer. That's how we have the trailer set up. So you put all the, like 7 or 8 bikes in the first bay, and then 7 or 8 bikes in the second bay, and 7 or 8 bikes in the third bay. And then you repeat it for the bikes on top of, and then the second floor. And obviously use the little bikes for that, because picking up heavy bikes isn't as fun as it sounds. And it doesn't sound fun. All right, when you do have a broken bike, please mark on the seat what's wrong with it and put it in the front or the back of the trailer, whichever way you put it. Don't put it in the middle of the trailer where it can't be seen. It should be put somewhere where our trailer drivers can easily retrieve it. All right, this has been changed. We only have loaner helmets, and they are not the skate styles. We found those did not fit well. For those of you worrying about lice, we have 2 preventative measures. Something called Benefect, which we use in our bike rental center. It's a time-based, all-natural disinfectant. And we also have surgical caps. So if you wanted, you could use both of them or just one of them, either the cap or the Benefect, or you can use them both. Doesn't matter. If you do have a child with lice, you can just, quarantine the helmet and keep it from the other kids, obviously without making a big fuss. At fun fact, lice actually happens more often with clean hair than dirty, so it's not as much of a stigma as we like to imagine. And it's a fact of life. So we have it planned. Don't worry. If you use up all of the surgical caps, just let us know, and we'll make sure to replenish the trailer. Some schools have kids reuse their same surgical cap. Some schools just use a new one every class. whatever works for you. Well, you do what feels right in your management of the health aspect of the helmet piece. So we also have everything you need to run the Bike Smart curriculum: cones, spray chalk, um, painter's tape, reflective vest for if you decide to take the kids on an on-road trip. Pretty much everything. All of the things you need to run any of the modules that I'll be talking about, and towels and a hose. So the towels are dry off the bikes if you do get them wet and muddy, and the hose is to wash them up if you get them very muddy. Like I said, my only real complaints for this program from other teachers has been if the previous school has left the bikes dirty or not put them back in a way that the other school could take them out of the trailer easily. I'm going to pause for a second. If you have any questions, you can write them in the question box right here, and I will keep an eye on it. So I will wait for a minute or so. Right now I'm on the Bike Smart curriculum guide. I'm still waiting for questions. All right, all set. Rick, thank you. Anyone else? All right. Okay. Looks like everyone's okay. Thank you. All right. So the bike. This is the meat of it. All right. So you are all professionals. You know kids. You know how to teach. All I'm doing today is running you through each of the activities on this, just to give you an idea of how it's supposed to work. You'll do the instructional piece. You know your kids. You know what you want to do. You decide how to use it. That's all up to you. This is just a really nice setup for you and on how you could run the program and to give you some nice ideas. So this curriculum is designed for kids aged 8 to 14 officially. Unofficially, to be completely honest, this is a really universal guide and can be run with pre-K through adult. You just, add modifications to make it harder or easier depending. We've split this up into modules, and each module has a theme. You can pick and choose from modules, kind of like an a la carte menu, what works best for you, what works best for your community and their students. I'm just going to go through them all. They have been sort of arranged in something of a logical order, a nice progression of skills that ramp up. It starts out with some basic bike handling skills and ends with a lot of important safety on street sort of safety aspects. All right. So module A is the beginning one, and it talks about how to fit a helmet and a bike, how to be safe, and what the rules of the road are. So once you have all of your bikes pulled out, you will be fitting the kids to the bikes. A real good way to check to see if the child is fit properly for the helmet, for the bike, is if they straddle the top tube. That's the tube that goes from the handlebars to the seat at the top. Have them straddle it. They should be able to have both legs on either side of it. And if you lift up the bike, it should only be able to go up 1 or 2 inches. If it goes up like 5 inches, it's too small. And if they can't get their legs over it and stand without being very uncomfortable, that means that bike is too big. The seat should be poking the very base of their back. And when they're sitting on the seat, now, okay, with an adult, if you're properly fit on your bike, when you're on the downstroke, your leg is almost entirely extended with only just a little bit of bend to the knee. But with a kid, most children are so wobbly on their bikes that you really want to get them a little closer to the ground. So with a child, you really want a little more bend to the knee. You want them to be able to comfortably put their foot down while they're sitting on the seat. I once made the mistake of adjusting a child's seat to where they should be for an adult, and that kid looked like they were biking on stilts. They were very brave and didn't complain, but I saw it and made a big note to myself never to do that again. I immediately got their seat back down. So once you have this bike fit properly, you can put a piece of blue tape on it and put the kid's name on it. The seats should all have quick releases now, so it does make it pretty easy to fit a kid to their proper seat. Each of the bikes also has a number, so if you just want to notate the number of the bike next to a kid's name on a list, that's also fine. Whatever works for you. All right, now we talk about helmet fit. And I like to do, and it's different from this, what I call the two-finger rule. And what you do is you take two fingers and you push them together, kind of like you're doing the Boy Scout salute, but instead you're putting it flat against your forehead, right above your eyebrows. The brim of the helmet should be right about where your second finger is. And the reason why we do that is because a lot of people have their helmets way back on their head and exposing their forehead. And really, your forehead is the part of your body that is most likely to hit, your head, but most likely to hit something because you're moving forward. So you really want the helmet to be covering your forehead while also allowing you to see. You take those same two fingers and you push them under the chin strap, and you should only be able to get two fingers. Now both fingers should be flat up against underneath the chin. So you don't want to turn it perpendicular and have two fingers with only one finger touching the chin. The whole point of this is to make sure that the chin strap is pretty snug without it being so tight the kid's uncomfortable. If you can stick two fingers underneath that chin strap, two flat fingers right up against the chin, then it's a pretty good setup for that. And I have a handout for that if you want to see it. And then the ears, what I do is I take those same two fingers and I turn them into a V and I put them under my ear, right near the earlobe. And that's where the Y of the helmet strap should be. It shouldn't be the clip, or the junction of the Y shouldn't be under their chin or above or on their ear. It really should be pretty close to below, like a centimeter or so below their earlobe. All right, now let's talk about appropriate clothing. I never am wearing the right clothing for biking. It should be bright colors and your pants should be tight around your ankles, and I'm never properly dressed for this, so I let the kids make fun of me whenever I'm teaching. But the really important thing for you guys, honestly, is a couple of points. Kids should be wearing closed-toed shoes, and shoelaces should be fully tied and probably tucked into sneakers. There's nothing more exciting than getting your shoelace caught in your bike gears. Reason for closed-toed shoes, especially not flip-flops, is because kids, again, have varying levels of control, and you will see some kids dragging the tops of their feet on the ground, which, not a pleasant sight when they're wearing open-toed shoes. And with flip-flops, you can sometimes get the pedal stuck between your toe and the flip-flop. Also not a fun way to fall. If a child is wearing a dress, they can wear it. If it's a long dress or whatever, you can do a real neat thing where you take a penny or a marble or something, and you put the penny through from like the back of the dress through both layers, and then put a rubber band around the penny or the marble so that you kind of create sort of pant type things, and it keeps the dress from flopping and gives them a lot more safety. You can also tuck pant legs into socks. So really, those are the important things for this particular educational component. If bright and tight is awesome, and you should definitely do that on street riding. But for educational purposes, the other things I outlined are really important. All right, now we're going to talk about ABC. This is the ABC quick check, and it is your bike safety check. All right, so A stands for air, B stands for brake, C stands for chain, and the quick check is checking your quick releases and really just doing a once over on your bike. How to check the air. Take your thumb and push straight down on the tire. The tire shouldn't go down more than a ½ inch, and a ½ inch is kind of generous. Do not squeeze the sidewalls. The sidewalls are squishier or actually harder, and so it seems like it's more pumped than it is. So definitely push straight down on the part of the tire that touches the ground. That's where you check the air. Brakes, and most of our bikes actually have hand brakes, two hand brakes, front and rear. I get some pushback from teachers on this, but I have a really good reason for it. We do have, unfortunately, from my point of view, some coaster brake bikes, but most of our bikes are hand brakes. So what you do when you check brake, you just squeeze one brake and you pull the bike forward, and that wheel shouldn't move. Then you let go of that brake, squeeze the other brake, pull the bike forward, and the other wheel shouldn't move. If you are unfortunate enough to have a coaster brake bike, even our coaster brake bikes do have one brake. Check the one brake and then lift the bike upside down and pedal it backwards and try to move the tire. As you can see already, you are having an annoying extra step for coaster brake bikes. All right, go to chain. This one's again pretty easy with my handbrake bikes. Just pedal the bike backwards. If the chain grinds, crunches, doesn't move smoothly, then it needs some TLC. It might need some lube. It might be in between shifting gears, whatever. But that's the way you check your chain. Again, with a coaster brake bike, you can't actually do that. You can't just pedal backwards because obviously that's the brake. So again, flip the bike upside down or have somebody lift the back of the bike up while the kid pedals forward. So either lift the back of the bike up and have the child pedal forward to see how the chain is moving, or flip the bike upside down and have the child pedal forward. You're already seeing why I don't like coaster brake bikes. They mess with the instruction. And you'll see more reasons why I'm not a big fan of coaster brake bikes. And I understand why somebody would like them, but they don't set children up for success, biking in general. All right, and then check your quick releases. Make sure they're nice and tight. Lots of horror stories of what happens when a seat comes off or the front wheel on your bike falls off and the fork sticks into the ground while you're going downhill. I've heard both horror stories. Neither one of them let me sleep well that night. So really make sure those quick releases are checked. All right, and then have the kids practice themselves. And I know one teacher who will sort of test the kids by, picking out a bike and noting the number down and, doing something like unhooking the brake or letting some of the air pressure out just to keep the kids on their toes. This is a nice little auxiliary thing she does. All right, rules of the road real quick. Bikes follow a lot of the same rules as cars. Whether or not that's the best way to do it, that is the way it is right now. Bikes need to stop at stoplights and stop signs. They need to signal their turns. They need to go in the same direction as cars. Now, if they're on a sidewalk, they're designed for pedestrians, people on foot. So if you're on a sidewalk, you need to be going pedestrian speed, and you need to give way to pedestrians on the sidewalk. Kids are often safer on a sidewalk, but the way our roads and sidewalks are designed does make a sidewalk more dangerous for children at intersections and adults. A lot of accidents happen at intersections, like driveways, parking lots, that kind of thing, actual intersections. Because a car isn't looking for a bike on a sidewalk. Bikes move faster. the stopping distances are shorter. There's often things in the visual field of the driver that obscures the sidewalk that can make sidewalks not as safe as you might think. That is easily fixed so by making sure the kids on the bikes are sorry, looking for cars at every intersection. And an intersection is, again, a driveway, a turn into a parking lot, or an actual intersection. Any place where a car has space to move on to cross their path is an intersection, and they need to be alert. All right, so that's the Module A. And if anyone has any questions, you can ask them. All right, I'll keep my eye on that while I move to Module B. All right, so Module B is about controlling your bike doing starts and stops. And you're going to see again why I don't like coaster brake bikes on this one. All right, so the power start. We all do the power start most likely ourselves. We just didn't know it was called that. So I'll show you what it looks like. It's a nifty little video. All right, and it shows you how you set your pedal up to start really smoothly. So most people, when they start their bike, will pull their pedal. Now watch this person. They're going to stand ahead of the seat. They're going to move the pedal by pedaling backwards to 10 o'clock or 11 o'clock or 2 o'clock, depending. They're going to push down with the one foot, and they're going to push off with the foot that's on the ground. And that gives you a really nice, smooth start. It's sometimes a little hard to get the hang of finding your pedal from the foot that you pushed off with, but once you get the hang of it, it's really nice. So you're going to see kids wobbling a lot. When you start your pedals in any other position besides a power start position, you end up with this like it's a lot more work. The kids will just be wobbling, they're unbalanced, they're falling off, and so having them practice that is really helpful. But with a coaster brake bike, you can't pedal backwards to get yourselves into the power start position. You can only push the bike forward and lift the pedal up laboriously with the top of your foot. It's ridiculous. So that's another strike against a coaster brake bike. It's just very difficult. I guess you could stand in front of it, lift the back of the seat up, and like pedal forward. It's a lot of work. So having kids practice that power start will keep them from having those wobbly, unbalanced, rather dangerous starts that you often see on a kid. So what you do here is you'll set up lanes of cones about 5 feet wide each. And what I like to do is have kids go in heats of like 4 or 5 kids at a time. So I'll set up like 5 lanes at once. That way it keeps everybody moving. You don't have long lines of kids waiting to go. If you can keep an eye on more kids going at once, that's awesome. If you need to have fewer lanes so you can really keep an eye on kids, do that. But it really moves things pretty quickly if you can have them go in heats and just line up in behind a bunch of like 5 kids lined up in each lane or something like that. So you have them practice and you just keep an eye on how a kid is finding that pedal, getting that really good, strong, smooth start, and give them feedback, obviously, if they're not doing it. All right, next you do an anti-lock stop. Basically, again, you'll see kids braking really hard, like just all of a sudden, and then basically doing this thing where it's more like falling than it is stopping. they've technically stayed upright, but it is like really out of control, and there's just a lot of bouncing and jostling and out of control movements. So what you really want is for that stop to be fully in control, and when you get off the seat, instead of like falling off the seat and like falling onto the top tube, you slide, you step off the seat on purpose and you are straddling the top tube like you plan to do it instead of it just sort of happened to you and you didn't want it to do it that way. So get the kids lined up and you practice your stop again by getting yourself in a good place. You squeeze the pedals slowly. Now with the kids, now this one says squeeze both brake levers equally, but I actually suggest that you squeeze the back brake first and then the front brake real quick. Like back brake, hold it, front brake, because if a kid just squeezes the front brake, that's a fun little accident. So back brake, front brake, keep holding them both with the kids. But you want their bodies to be pushing, their weight to be pushing back a little bit. It should be a slow, careful stop, or at least a controlled one. If they're like hauling on those brakes and basically the bike is just stopping and skidding sideways, they haven't mastered it. So shift your weight back, squeeze the rear brake and then the front brake, and you should be in a straight line when you brake. You should demo it just like you demo the power start, and then have them go in heats, and you have them start, hopefully using a power start, and then when you shout stop, everyone should stop smoothly, have them go again, shout stop again, have them stop smoothly, and then have the next kids go and have it roll until you see the kids really stopping well. Then you can play red light, green light. All of our activities start with like skills drills and then end with some sort of game that helps the kids practice those skills drills. So red light, green light is played the same way as you play it on foot, except you have to give them a little more notice before you turn around for red light. So what I do is I will put my hand up in the air for like a second or two, and I'll say red light, put my hand up in the air for a second or two, and then I'll turn around. But I expect them to be looking ahead. So this has a dual purpose. First, it gives them enough time to actually stop. Bikes have a longer stopping distance than feet do. And also, it forces them to look up. I see a lot of kids biking with their heads down, which makes their balance a lot worse and also is dangerous. So having them practice looking up at your hand and at your body, getting those cues is a really important auxiliary skill. So obviously, if a kid is moving when you are at red light, they have to go back to the beginning, and they're not out. They just go back to the beginning and have to try and catch up. And obviously, the first kid to come to the finish line without getting stopped is the winner for that game. Just like any old red light, green light, except with a couple modifications for the longer stopping distance. All right, Module C is all about balance and control. So I find it ironic that this module starts with a track stand because track stands are really hard. I can't do one. So here's what a track stand looks like. Voila. No thanks. I I can't do that. I don't know a lot of people who can unless they've been biking for a large part of their lives. That said, it's a really nice thing to have in your back pocket for a child who may be more advanced in their bike skills than other kids. And they may need something to challenge them. Absolutely, set them up to practice doing track stands. It's a really nice skill. It has some utility, like at a stop sign. I don't think you gain that much more extra time with your feet on your pedals as you do with your feet off of them starting. But if you're using clip in, for example, I suppose that's annoying. That said, track stands are pretty nichey. You don't absolutely need to know how to do them to ride your bike well, but they are a useful skill, and it's a nice one for engaging your kids who have skills issues. All right, or who are really, really good at it and need something else to do. So I would skip that one, except in special circumstances. But that doesn't mean that this next thing is not useful. Or you can't play this either. Slow race is actually really an important balance building activity. So basically, it's the last person across the finish line who wins, but with some caveats, you cannot have your feet touch the ground ever. You have to be moving forward. You can't go sideways or backwards. So if your foot touches the ground, or if you go sideways or forwards, you are disqualified. And what I have them do is I just have them speed up and cross the finish line first, because sometimes kids forget that they were disqualified. And then if they quote unquote win, they get upset when they discover that they didn't win. So I just have them cross the finish line real quick, and you don't get any arguments, as many arguments. Kids will argue about anything. Um, so the slow race is pretty hard. It's really a difficult challenge to ride your bike slowly. Now these rules say you can't do a track stand, but I mean, if you can do a track stand, rock on. Like, go ahead and do it. That's fine with me. You decide what rules you want to keep and what rules you don't want to keep. I have this cute little thing I do where I say, get ready, get set, slow, because again, some kids will lose track of the fact that the goal is to be going slowly. And I would play this one a lot. And my other suggestion would be if you have a big disparity between skill levels on kids, you might want to have two separate slow races going, one for kids with a higher level of skill and one with kids for a lower level of skill, because the kids who don't have a lot of skill need the most practice, and they won't get it if they're competing against the kids who are already very good at it. All right, dab. This one's really hard to explain, so I'm just going to show you a video. So ignore the fact that these guys are not wearing helmets. You'll see that all of these bikes are trying to stay within that center square concrete pad. The way you can set up dab is to use a circle, honestly. So when you do it, set up a circle, have it be, and again, the instructions say 10 feet for 10 kids. That's pretty small. You want that circle to be probably starting at about 15 feet, and then give it a foot of diameter for every additional kid after 10. If somebody goes out of the circle, they're disqualified. So you could either have them leave the circle like these guys are doing, or you can have them be stuck still, sitting there with their bikes, and have them be another obstacle. But if you go out of the circle, or if your foot touches the ground, you are disqualified, and you either have to leave or you become an obstacle. The other thing you can do, if you have, like, you see these like 5 guys who are doing really well. If the game shouldn't last more than a couple minutes, and if it's lasting a while with the same kids in the center, you can increase the rules to be like, you also have to keep one hand on your helmet, and you can't put your foot on the ground, and also you can shrink the size of the circle. So you really want to keep this game moving pretty fast, or kids will get bored. And again, if you have wildly different skill levels, I would suggest that you set up 2 different games so that kids who aren't particularly good at bike control, get the practice they need, and a chance to win. All right. Any questions so far? I'm checking. I don't see anything. All right. Nope. Okay. Seriously, if you have any questions, type them in. All right. Rock dodge. This is all about the skill of being able to hang onto your handlebars and look over your shoulder for cars without moving your bike in the direction you're looking. It's very easy to accidentally pull on your handlebars in the direction you're looking because your whole body is turning and your arm is turning. It's so you're looking for a car, right? And now you've moved your bike into the path of the car you were looking for. So it's a really essential skill that kids are able to keep their bike in straight while looking over their shoulder for cars. Obviously, it's a safety issue. So we have an activity for that. Set up. This one I think makes sense. Makes sense to have just one lane because it's most likely only going to be you, maybe you and an assistant. But what you do is you demo first. So you could have a kid demo, help you with the demo too if you need to. But basically, you're going to bike down the lane and look over your shoulder and make sure you keep your handlebars straight. And show them how the difference between what happens if you look and you turn your handlebars versus if you look and you keep your handlebars straight. And they'll see you like moving into the lane. Have them practice. So you send them down the lane, one kid at a time. When they get about halfway, shout, "Look back." And they need to look back. We actually have 11 by 17 signs with trucks and cars and buses on it. And you can use those to check to make sure the kids are actually looking. So you hold up the sign with the truck and they have to look behind them and say, "Oh, that's a truck." You switch the sign so the next kid has a different picture of like a car. You have different colored cars. You can use the colors of the item. There are a lot of different ways to check to make sure the kids are actually seeing what they're looking for, which is an important add-on skill. An important note, please be standing where a car would actually be in relation to a bike. I had somebody do demo look back with me, and she stood right behind me. So I'm like looking for this thing, and I ended up like, I did move my handlebars because at that point I was doing a 180 in my seat to find it, and I ended up biking off the sidewalk. It was very embarrassing. So make sure you stand where a car would actually be so that they can have a fighting chance to do it. This is, so then you just have them, every kid run the look back drill at least once, if not a couple of times. Once they have mastered looking back without turning their handlebars, now you're going to incorporate the reason why you're looking back. You're looking behind you, not because you're paranoid there's a car there. If it's a straightaway, I mean, it's nice to know there's a car there, but it's not necessarily going to be a big deal if a car is there or isn't because you're going straight, the car's going straight, everything's good. But if you are looking behind you because you're about to make a turn or there's a giant pothole or a bunch of broken glass in front of you and you want to either make the turn or go around the pothole and you're looking to make sure you won't get hit by a car while you're doing it, you need to incorporate a few more skills. So again, you'll be holding the vehicle sign and then have them look back to make sure that there's no car. Now this is where you can get a little sneaky here. You can set up an intersection. Sometimes I'll use, we've included a bunch of sponges and a pretend roadkill or whatever. You can create a little cluster of that in the center of the lane for them, or on the actually the right-hand side of the lane for them to have to go around. The child will look behind them, try to see if it's safe, and signal Now, how do they know it's safe? Well, there isn't a car there. So if you're holding up a sign with a car, they can't then go around the pothole or make the turn. They have to wait until you have indicated that the car is gone. You could either have them have the back of the sign flipped up, or you could put the sign behind you, whatever it is that indicates that it's safe. So they can't just look back, signal that they're going to, go around the pothole or make a turn willy-nilly. They have to use some situational awareness here. So look back. If the car is there, they have to stop. They cannot do the thing they wanted to do. They have to wait until it's safe. Really an important just general life skill is to apply what you're learning in a way that's meaningful. So don't bike into a car. Make sure you are doing the thing to keep you safe. So have them practice. They're gonna have some trouble with the decision making, the signaling, but whatever. Just roll it through a bunch of times until they get it. And this is rock dodge as well. So I combine rock dodge and look back and signal. As you can see, I myself modify the curriculum as well. Also, we have little pretend roadkill. I mentioned it. It's hilarious. It's a squeaky dog toy. You can reward a well-executed rock dodge by letting them run over the squeakies. They love it. I think it's hilarious. All right. Oh, one thing I was going to say. Oh, signaling. So Vermont allows you to just point in whatever direction you're turning. You can also use, so if you're going left, you would point your left arm straight. If you're going right, you would point your right arm straight. The traditional one is if you're going left, you point your left arm straight. And then if you're going right, you take your left arm and make into a 90-degree angle pointing up. The problem with that one is people don't see it anymore. It was designed for when cars didn't have turning signals, and obviously the only arm that was near a window was the left-hand one. It looks a lot like somebody's waving hi. It's actually pretty confusing signal, and kids have left-right confusion as well. So I suggest pointing. The only downside to pointing is, of course, the right hand is with the right brake, and the right brake is the rear brake, and that's the nice brake. So you can have them either practice, taking their hand off real quick and pointing and just doing it repeatedly, kind of like an intermittent signal, or come to a stop and then signal. Either way is fine. But it's a lot more unambiguous of a signal, and no one gets confused. All right, Module E. This one's about bike handling and control. Basically, it's a slalom. So we set up the lanes with cones, and then we put the little disc cones in the center. My strong suggestion is that you run through the slalom yourself first to see if it's actually possible. You'll want those cones further apart than you think. I did it once, and I thought I had them far enough apart, and I did not. It was extremely difficult. The closer the cones are together, the tighter the turn has to be and the harder it is. We do have spray chalk. You can use the spray chalk to make little arrows telling kids what direction to go in. A note about the spray chalk, it's awesome. It will go away, so your maintenance people will not be mad at you. The only time I've ever had trouble with it is on brand spanking, fresh, new asphalt that's still shiny and a little soft. That one took a couple months to get out. I did hear about it. But in every other situation, it goes away in 1 to 2 weeks. Maybe 3 if they have a dry spell. I promise it goes away. It even went away on the brand new stuff. It's just people are not happy with us. You don't have to use the spray chalk. You can also use sidewalk chalk we've included as well. One suggestion is to run with the kids along the slalom. I discovered my own self that even if you demonstrate it yourself, kids are just not paying attention or just get real excited and don't see that you're supposed to weave in and around the cones, and instead will just bike really fast alongside of it and then end at the very end of it looking real proud of themselves. And then you know have to break it to them that they didn't do it right. So you end up doing a lot of running, at least for the first round, just pointing, okay, running along, Amy, and pointing her this way, and then telling Joey to go that way, and you just point as they go around each cone. All right, you can have them signal as they turn for a little bit more complexity, and then another thing you can do is at the very end of the course have somebody standing there shouting, okay, left, right, and they have to signal and go in that direction as well. All right. F is all about intersection behaviors, eye contact, and how to make right turns and left turns. Now, cars are the dangerous objects on the road. They are the ones that should be taking the most responsibility for safety, since they're the ones with the vehicle that can kill somebody. But as we all know, people in cars are pretty cavalier about the fact that they're driving something so dangerous. So it's incumbent upon all of us to be in charge of our safety, but it is shocking how little concern with other people's safety we have when we're behind the wheel of a car. So somebody will be on the phone, or like putting on makeup, or eating breakfast, or drinking coffee, and just not paying attention to what's happening at an intersection. So the first thing we practice is eye contact. Making sure that you have communicated with the other drivers driving around you so that everybody knows everyone is there. At the bare minimum, they should see you. So what you do is first, you can review how each intersection works, crosswalks, four-way stops, how a traffic signal works. Bikes can use crosswalks, but again, the functional word here is walk, so they need to get off their bike, is it. So I like to have them practice, like I'll do a whole lineup where they bike down the line and come up to an intersection I've made out of cones, and I'll be driving up from whatever direction, the left, the right, I'll facing them, and I'll pretend I'm a car, and I'm not actually a car, I'm just a person maybe holding a car sign in my hand, and the kids wait while I pretend to be on the cell phone or eating a sandwich or picking my nose and just looking up at the clouds. And they have to wait, and they're looking at me. They have to look at me until our eyes meet, and then they do a communication. They signal or they do something, but they can't move until they've made eye contact with me. It's really important. All right, let's talk about right turns. Right turns are relatively easy. There's not a lot of opportunity for crashes with a right turn, but that doesn't mean there's no opportunity. As an adult, I really like to just take the lane at an intersection no matter what I'm doing, because it ensures that the car behind me has a much higher likelihood of seeing me, because I'm not this tiny little skinny thing next to them. I'm in front of them, a tiny little skinny thing in front of them, and talking about the bike, not me. And they can either, so the car behind me can see me, car oncoming definitely can see me as well, and anybody turning, I'm just right there in the middle of the lane doing my thing, saying I'm here. Not everyone feels comfortable with that. You can still have people stay in the right-hand lane for making a right-hand turn, but again, you still just need to make that eye contact. There have been crashes where a driver has just turned too sharply and bumped into the back of somebody also taking a right-hand turn. So signal your right-hand turn. Make eye contact with all the drivers, and then make your turn. Left-hand turns, and then just have them practice it. You have your little coned up pretend intersection, and just have them practice signaling the right turn and making it. All right, I'm sorry, I am almost running out of time, but luckily we are almost done. Left turns there's a couple ways you can do it. You can take, get off your bike and cross like a pedestrian, across the street, straight, and then turn left and cross the street again, and then once you've crossed that second street, get back on your bike and go. Or you can take the lane, make eye contact with everybody, signal left, and turn just like you were a car. Both of those ways are totally valid, and it depends on the emotional maturity of the person you're teaching. And then have them practice. Module G is all about if you decide to do a culminating trip with the kids to practice their skills. It's this awesome thing to do. I know a lot of schools that do it. It depends on if you have the right place to do it. I'm fine with you relocating the trailer to a place that has more low volume, slower roads. I'm fine with that. Just let me know that you plan to do it, and I'll send you a trailer relocation form so you can get, make sure you have the right vehicle and an experienced driver. My only pro tip on this one is make sure that you have more adults than you need, because you're always going to have that one or two kids who are borderline. Like, you want to give them the chance to have the opportunity to do it. They could very likely do the whole trip successfully, but they could just as likely really make some bad choices and have to go home. You really want an adult or some sort of system in place for those children to be taken back home without messing up everyone else's activity. And also having super clear rules and super clear consequences, but you already knew that. I did go on one trip that was a nightmare. It was a nightmare. So I just like to underline those points. All right, I am a minute over, and I deeply apologize. Does anyone have any questions? If you don't, just write no. I feel like I should be singing the Jeopardy theme song right now. Thanks, Rick. I will send everybody the training files so that you have all of my next stuff. Thanks, Rick. Anyone else? All right. Well, if you have any questions at all, I'm really happy to answer them. We can, if you would like me to talk to you again, or even do it in person, I am totally fine with that as well. Just send me an email and I will do that with you. Thank you, everybody. I really appreciate you taking time out of your evening to do this. It's above and beyond, and I really appreciate it. Thank you, and have a really good night.